evening, everyone who are present here from India and all parts of the globe. Firstly, a warm greetings to one and all. I, Dr. Anmol Bagaria, with my Sinodent team. Again, we have brought something exciting for you guys. On this auspicious occasion of Navratri, with the blessings of Ma Durga and Lord Krishna, today again we have brought something exciting for you. Firstly, I take few minutes to thank few people. I'd start with thanking my mom and dad for being my support system. I'd also like to thank my dear brother, Prince Kushwardhan Singh Chauhan, who is the Prince of Ujjain. He has made my dream of digital Sinodent into reality. And then I have few more people to thank. I thank the executive board members of Sinodent, all the executive team, the national team, the state team, the college team, each and every student, each and every delegate, the practitioners, the speakers, and each and every one who are engaging with us, who are coming live to view the things we do, who are supporting us in whatever we are doing. Thank you for supporting us, trusting us, and being with us. We bring up for each and every one. It's by the doctors for the doctors. Sinophoria 2020. Sinodent presents you Sinophoria 2020. Sinodent is an initiative towards global healthcare for all, and we bring up for everyone Sinophoria 2020 by the doctors for the doctors. I'd request Vishal to start with today's lecture.
Good evening to one and all. This is another Power Pack session for the knowledge that it's about to share to you guys. I am Vishal Karmani, your co-host for the evening. And with my host, Dr. Anu Vasisht, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Anmol Bagaria, who is the CEO and founder of Sinodent. Now, Sinodent, let me tell you a few details about what Sinodent is. Sinodent is a unique platform, first time in India, a digital healthcare platform that provides and enhances a good relationship between patients and doctors and also enables a real-time appointment scheduling system. Our goal is to create easy access to healthcare for all the individuals, healthcare services and communication ways or appointment scheduling system not only between dentists and patients but also for medical practitioners, diagnostic lab to radiological service and pharmaceutical services and also research and education programs for doctors to enhance their knowledge and keep them updated regarding the same. Sinodent bring together and, at economic prices and minimum waiting time because everyone has 24 hours and everyone wants to utilize without wasting time. Sinodent is here to create precious and healthy smile on our patients' faces with minimum effort and maximum welfare. Sinodent is an initiative that will put up all its efforts to create that beautiful smile on a patient's face always. Now, patients don't have to wait for in long queues and busy dentists when they get a toothache. Now, introducing you guys to for today's topic, 3D bioprinting has taken a new place in treatment arena when it comes to dentistry. 3D printing has allowed the clinicians to create and use a lot of different grafts, substitutes in the field of oral surgery, prosthodontics, orthodontics, implants, and various others. Let's explore the 3D bioprinting in oral surgery. That is today's topic, use of virtual surgical planning and 3D printing in oral and maxillofacial surgery. This is going to be a live session by none other than Dr. Bhaskar Agrawal. We welcome you, Dr. Bhaskar. He is BDS from Government Dental College, Mumbai. He has completed his MDS in oral surgery at AIMS, Delhi. He is CEO of Sagmarks Private Limited, a company dedicated in rapid prototyping and 3D printing in healthcare, specifically dedicated in maxillofacial and dental applications of 3D printing. Working as a consultant maxillofacial surgeon in Columbia Asia Hospital and various clinics in Delhi NCR. Senior resident doctor in Department of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery in AIIMS New Delhi and has experience of level in working in level 1 trauma center and managing the maxillofacial trauma cases. He has done various research projects and papers and book published on extensive resources. He's lecturer he's lecturer as faculty in AOCMF seminars and courses. He's member of Association of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery in India and Association of Osteosynthesis Craniomaxillofacial Surgery. He has done courses in microsuturing, BLS, ACLS, and many more. His area of special interest are maxillofacial trauma, TMJ diseases, TMJ replacement, orthodontic surgery for dentofacial deformity, computer-assisted surgical stimulation and planning, 3D printing, and its uses in maxillofacial surgery. Now, I'd like to hand over the panel to Dr. Bhaskar.
Thank you, Dr. Vishal, for such an elaborate introduction. Good evening to all. I'll just share my screen. Is my screen visible to all?
Yes,
Yes,
it's
sir.
visible.
Yes, sir.
So good evening to all. Today we'll discuss on the uses of virtual surgical planning and 3D printing in oral and maxillofacial surgery. This is basically not on 3D bioprinting, but simple 3D printing. Okay. So my disclaimer, this presentation has clinical cases done by me and my colleagues at AIIMS New Delhi, and as well as few evidences from the literature. The 3D printing of guides for few cases has been done by Sagmarks Private Limited. I am CEO of Sagmarks Private Limited, and I have no conflict of interest other than the above statements to mention. We'll discuss this topic under these headings: the introduction, what is 3D printing and what are the different technologies available, what is virtual surgical planning, and application of virtual surgical planning and 3D printing in various oral and maxillofacial surgical procedures, and then we'll conclude. Okay, so with the advent of CT scans, CBCTs, and MRI, we have got a more insight into our disease process. Earlier, we could see only the disease in 2 dimensions, but now with the availability of CT scans and MRIs, we can see the disease in 3 dimensions. So, and with the availability of medical image processing software, you can do the surgery before you actually go to the OR. Make the you get yourself accustomed with the anatomy and the procedure that you would be performing. So the workflow is this way. You do a digital medical imaging like CT scan, CBCT, and MRI. You feed it into a medical image processing software and do a virtual surgical planning. I'll just show you a video of how the virtual surgical planning was done for a case. There was a case of total TMJ replacement with asymmetry. So you can see in this, the patient has a skewed face, deviated, the chin is deviated towards one side. He has a TMJ ankylosis on the right side. And so we had planned a total TMJ replacement and a total facial correction for him. So what are the steps in this? You go for a gap arthroplasty first, and then you do you have planned your osteotomies and do a gap. Then secondly, you do a coronidectomy and sagittal split osteotomy. All of this is being done on the computer even before you take the patient to the OR, and the Lefort 1 osteotomy. So now we have to correct the occlusal plane of this patient. This whole maxillomandibular complex is rotated. And this is how the correction is done. And then you do a fixation at Lefort 1 level and a sagittal split level. Okay. So when you plan in this way, there is a philosophy that what you are doing as a step one in virtual surgical planning, that same has to be correlated with the step that you would do in surgery. And how do you take your plan from the computers to the operation theater? You can do it with the help of guides, templates, or measurements. In the subsequent slides, we'll see how these guides or templates or measurements help to transfer the plan from the computer to the patient. So what is 3D printing? 3D printing lets you see and feel what you could just imagine. It gives a physical form to your idea. So you can, if you have an idea, you print it and then you hold it in your hand and see, can you do something better? So these are a few applications of 3D printing. The above one shows a hand prosthesis. The left side one shows a mechanical valve, heart, and these are other few applications. So there are two processes of manufacturing anything. The one is subtractive manufacturing, the other is additive manufacturing. So subtractive manufacturing is removal of materials by methods such as cutting or drilling. If in a simpler words, like we all have done carving during our second year. So from the block of wax, we tend to remove the material and carve out a tooth. That is subtractive manufacturing. The other example is the milled crowns that we get. It is milled out of a ceramic block. That is also a subtractive manufacturing. Then additive manufacturing. Additive manufacturing refers to technologies that create objects through sequential layering. As you can see in this photograph, there is a sequential buildup of this material. And to make it more simpler, you can see this Imarti making process. This is basically he's doing a layer-wise addition of the material and making the object. So 3D printing, it is also known as additive manufacturing. It was first invented by Chuck Hull. Chuck Hull invented 3D printers in 1986, and he named it as stereolithography. There are various technologies in 3D printing like FDM, fused deposition modeling, also known as fused filament fabrication, SLA, stereolithography, selective laser sintering, selective laser melting, and electron beam melting and digital light processing. We'll discuss few of these technologies and their uses in dentistry. So fused deposition modeling is commonly used for modeling, prototyping, and production applications. A plastic filament, which is basically a thermoplastic, it is fed into a hot end, as you can see in this image. The ABS filament is fed in. It liquefies at a temperature of around 260 degrees Celsius, and it is layer by layer extruded, and the object is printed, just the way it is seen in this image. So various polymers are used in making this, like acrylonitrile, butadiene, styrene, polycarbonates, polylactic acid. Polylactic acid is biodegradable and it is environment friendly. The next technique is SLA, stereolithography. Photopolymerization is primarily used in stereolithography to produce a solid part from a liquid. So the liquid polymer is exposed to light from a DLP projector or a laser under safe light conditions. And it is used for making surgical guides, implants, stents, and models. So basically, this is kind of a flowable composite that we use in dentistry, and it is cured by a UV light. So you can see in this image, there are specific areas where the UV light is falling. It will cure the material in those areas only. Next technique is selective laser sintering. So it uses a laser as the power source to sinter powder material. The material in this is basically in a powder form. The laser melts the surface of the powder and it binds the particles together to create a solid structure. So laser fuses small particles of plastic, metal, ceramic, or glass powders into a mass that has a desired three-dimensional shape. It is used for making surgical guides and high-strength models. We'll just see a small video of how the thing happens.
Enter the metal material.
So as you can see, the material is loaded, and here above you can see that the material is spread, the powder is spread, and a laser from the top starts to cure the material. It fuses and melts it, and layer by layer the next layer is deposited, and this is how a complete 3D structure is made out of powder. So this is selective laser sintering. Selective laser melting is similar thing. It is used for metals. It is compatible with cobalt, chromium, titanium, stainless steel, and copper, and it is used for making patient-specific maxillofacial implants. This is a summary of the various technologies available and their advantages and disadvantages. I will not read this out. This is pretty long. So next we come to what is virtual surgical planning. So it is a computer-based application to analyze the anatomy, perform the surgery, and simulate the outcome so as to weigh the planned procedure in terms of safety and predictability, and to fabricate the necessary tools or patient-specific armamentarium to safely execute the procedure. Basically, this definition is not given anywhere. I have, based on my experience, I have tried to define virtual surgical planning, and in subsequent slides, I will try to justify this definition. And a VSP provides surgeons with a clear 3D visualization of patients' anatomy to develop a surgical plan prior to entering the operating room. Let's go through a few cases. This is a coronal section of a patient with temporomandibular joint ankylosis. As you can see, the left side of the joint is deranged, and in the 3D anatomy, you can see there is a deranged joint anatomy. Okay, so what all can we do from this kind of data? We can measure the amount of bone that will have to be removed. That is about 23.90 millimeters, approximately 24 millimeters, and from medial laterally. And you can see the anteroposterior dimensions also, how big the ankylotic mass is, and there is an elongated coronoid process. The next thing that you can see is the distance from the superior cut to the lingula, because you don't want to injure the inferior alveolar neurovascular bundle. And you can also see on the coronal section that there is a very thin skull base over the condylar remnant, and this medially displaced condylar remnant has to be removed once you are operating the patient for TMJ ankylosis. And while removing this, you need to be careful that a thin skull base over the condylar remnant can get perforated if you are not cautious. Let's see another patient with a different anatomy. The whole idea of doing a virtual surgical planning is to get yourself acquainted of what you will encounter during the surgery. So the structure encircled in the red, you can see a small silastic, and there is a perforation in the skull base, and there is a TMJ ankylosis also. In the 3D structure, you can see there is a defect in the skull base, and the silastic is lying vertically. So what all measurements you can do from this? The defect is about 21 millimeters in mediolaterally, and the dimension of the ankylotic bony mass is about 22.82 millimeters. So it is quite huge, and such a large defect can, if you're not aware of this and you're not cautious of this, you can definitely go into brain. And this is another dimension anteroposteriorly, and in the middle you can see silastic. So the process, the treatment was to remove the silastic, repair the cranial base, and do the osteoarthrectomy. So this is the 3D printed model of this patient. You can see the anatomy. You can see another patient. This is another 16-year-old male who had fall from height and sustained trauma to the condyle as well as brain, and had undergone craniectomy. So you can see there are a lot of defects in the cranial bone. So this is the amount of defect. So what all can I do with this data? I can measure the dimension of the ankylotic bony mass. I can do anterior posterior measurements. Can I do something more? Can I plan my incision in this case so that it does not go into the areas where the bone is deficient? Yeah, let's see. So this is the red line that you see is my proposed incision plan, and I can see the underlying defect is about 21.2 millimeters away from my top end of the incision. So I can angulate my incision only this way and only up to 21 millimeters. Beyond that, I would go into the area with the defect and may injure the dura mater. This is another case which I reported, and he has a deranged anatomy. He has a stylomandibular fusion with a TMJ ankylosis. If you're not aware of such anatomies, you can lead to catastrophic results during the surgery. This is another case with a TMJ ankylosis. She had a bilateral TMJ ankylosis and was planned for a total joint replacement. As you can see on the 3D anatomy. Okay, so I had planned my these green lines that you see. I have planned the osteotomy this way, both the sides. You can see on the 3D structure also. This is my planned osteotomy. But now the question is, how do I transfer my plan to the patient? I need to have some measurement, or I need to have some physical form that I can place there on the patient, and it accurately transfers the plan to the patient. So continuing with the same case, at that time when I did this case, I was new to 3D printing, didn't know much about 3D modeling. So I had to come up with a manual way of making guides. So I had printed this model with this cutting planes jutting out, and with the help of polymethyl methacrylate resin, self-cured resin, we made the cutting guides, and you can see there is an intraoperative use of this cutting jig placed. It was made for bilateral for both the sides, and this is how the surgery was executed. So let's come to various applications of virtual surgical planning and 3D printing. So there's sometimes somebody goes through a trauma and road traffic accident and can have a brain injury and requires this large amount of craniectomy, removal of the cranial bone, temporal and parietal bones. So, and that leads to a defect. We need to cover this defect to give cosmesis as well as to prevent any further injury to the brain. So there are three things that can be done. You can have a metal titanium printed cranioplast. You can have a polyether ether ketone cranioplast, or you can just print the model, and over that you can adapt a mesh, a titanium mesh. So just the way it is done in this image. Another technique that my colleague and me developed, and it is published in British Journal of Neurosurgery. And it is a novel, economically viable solution for 3D printing assisted cranioplast fabrication. I'll just go into a little detail of this technique. So the CT data of the patient is fed into the digital planning software, and the contralateral side of the skull is mirrored onto the defect side, and the STL file is generated just the way here. And then you make a VEX pattern is made by adapting VEX over the 3D printed model. This is a small video of how the process is done. As you can see, based on the CT scan, the 3D structure of the patient is generated. The contralateral side of the normal side of the skull is mirrored sorry, it is repositioned, and the excess is removed. Okay. So, and this now this final structure is sent for a 3D printing. So this is how a final prosthesis was made in a heat cured clear PMMA over the 3D printed model, and in the intraoperative photograph, the final prosthesis was in place covering the skull defect. There's another procedure for craniofacial distraction. You can use it. It is also a technique that we have published recently. Let me tell you why we need to go through 3D printing. What helps? What is the help that we get from 3D printing in such a case? So you see this black thing. It is called as a halo frame, and this whole device is called a rigid external distractor. And you can see with the help of pins or screws, it is anchored to the cranium. So wherever the cranium is defective, or it has a thin bone, or there is a defect breach in the continuity of the cranial bone, there are chances that the pins may migrate intracranially and injure brain. So we don't want to do that. This is basically the videos showing what happens when we place with a rigid external distractor. The mid face is gradually distracted forward. And it is done in cases where there is a mid face retrusion. So this is the, as you can see in this image, there is a defect in the skull, in the cranial skull. And this is a patient of Cruzon syndrome and has undergone strip craniectomy earlier, and had presented to us with the retruded mid face, where a distraction process was planned for her. So let me go show you this small video. So the data is fed into the planning software. As you can see, there are multiple defects in the bone. Now the soft tissue structure of the patient is generated from the CT data. One thing that you need to take care of while placing this distractor, it has to be parallel to the Frankfurt horizontal plane. So the Frankfurt horizontal plane is planned on the software, and a point is marked at 3 centimeters above the helix, and the horizontal plane and the Frankfurt horizontal plane is duplicated and raised to that level, because you want to place your distractors along this plane and parallel to the Frankfurt horizontal plane. So as you can see, there are defects in the skull here. On the other side also, you don't want to place your pins in this defective area. Now the simulation is being done for the placement of pins. These small cylinders that you see, these are basically simulating the pins, and you can see that it is not in any area of defect. Once this plan is confirmed, then we generate this kind of templates or guides for the placement of such pins. As you can see, this is the these are the guides for the placement of pin. And this is how the guide was designed, and this is the intraoperative view of placement of the guide. And you can see these holes. These can be used for placing the pins accurately and away from the skull defect. Another case that we can use where 3D printing has a use is orbital reconstruction. As you can see in this image, there is a fracture of the orbital floor on the left side. You can see this 3D reconstruction where a large defect is visible. So the idea is to reconstruct the defective side as similar to the normal side. So the right side is normal, the left side is where the fracture is. I want to reconstruct the left side just according to the right side. So what we do, we mirror the opposite side over the defective side, and we make a 3D printed model of the mirrored image, and adapt the meshes or the titanium plates a day before, so that you save time intraoperatively, and this also gives you a good accuracy and symmetry. This is the intraoperative view, and you can see how nicely the orbital floor is reconstructed, the symmetry. This is the 3D view of that same patient. This is another technique for facial trauma reconstruction. My colleagues have published recently in Journal of Stomatology and Oral Maxillofacial Surgery. So as you can see in the top, there is a comminuted fracture of the mandible. There is a severe comminution, and the problem is that how to reconstruct the mandible to near normal, because you don't have any guide. There is so much comminution. There is no buttress available that you can use it for deciding your reconstruction. So what we decided, we took a CT scan from a patient, from a same age group female patient. This CT scan is of a female patient only. So we took a CT scan and took out the mandible from that, and used it to reconstruct the mandible. Let's go into a little details of this. You can see this is a 3D printed model of the reconstructed mandible, and plate was pre-bent on this, and the intraoperative view to reconstruct the mandible. This is a small video of showing how this is done. So you import the CT scan data into the software. This is how the mandible was completely broken. These are the multiple defects. This patient had a fall from height and had a severe comminution of the mandible as well as long bones. Excuse me. So mandible is generated, and from a different patient, the mandible was brought in, and this mandible was superimposed over the fractured mandible, and the ramus of the original patient, of the fracture patient, was used, and the anterior segment was reconstructed with the help of the normal patient. So this is how the mandible was reconstructed, and this was sent for a 3D printing. So, okay. So it has use in guided temporomandibular joint ankylosis surgery also. This is a small video of showing how we use it in temporomandibular joint ankylosis. So the right side you can see that is the ankylosed side. The normal, the left is the normal side. On the coronal sections, you can see there is a huge bony mass that is extending from medial to lateral. And same thing on the panoramic image. So you make a 3D model you generate a 3D reconstruction of this CT scan, you can see there is a huge bony mass, and the joint anatomy is deranged. This is a small cross section of this, and you can see this is the medial condyle. You need to remove this part to prevent any kind of recurrences, and this is very large amount of bone that has to be removed. So the line that you see here, that is my planned osteotomy line. I want to cut the mandible, remove the ankylosing mass from these two places. I planned it this way, and this is the osteotomy guide. You can see as you can see on this cross section, the accurate fit of the guide. This is on the reconstruction, and this is the intraoperative view. The guide is placed, and you can see there is a slot for the instrument to go in. It will not allow the instrument to go in any direction but only one. So it has a single path of insertion, and the location of the cut is also guided by this process. Similarly, the lower cut is also placed. The guide is removed, and you can see how nicely the cut is. And this is an intraoperative view. The guide is placed, and you can see the two parallel cuts that you mark. And this is how a complete ankylotic bony mass was removed from this patient. We have seen this as an open joint procedure. Can we use it for minor procedures like arthrocentesis or closed joint procedures? Let's see. So I got a patient in 2018 for whom I had to do an arthrocentesis, but I could not do a good arthrocentesis for him because his anatomy was such that I could not palpate the joint very well. So I faced this problem and thought that if I am facing, somebody else would be facing it too. Let's find a solution to this problem. So I came up with this idea of doing a guided temporomandibular joint arthrocentesis. So based on the CBCT of the patient, the point of entry and exit for the two needles is marked. You can see is a point for two needles, and the orange colored is the guide based on the soft tissues. It takes anchorage from the inner ear. So this is how the guide was made, and it was printed, and the intraop view. So usually it takes longer to put a needle in the perfect location, but with the help of guides, it's just a point of a minute. Just doesn't take too long, and every time you're sure that it will go into the right place. So all of us have used dental implants and heard of the surgical guides for dental implants. This is also based on virtual surgical planning and 3D printing. You take the CT scan or CBCT data of the patient and plan the position of the implants, and also you can plan the position on the basis of prosthetically driven planning. You can make the crowns and export them as well. This is how the guide was designed, and this is the process. The CBCT DICOM data and the 3D scan models are imported into the software, and the planning is done. This guide is exported as a STL file. It is sent to a 3D printer, and the fit is verified on the cast, and then it is used for the surgery. So to conclude, virtual surgical planning is a state-of-the-art technology for planning and safe execution of complex maxillofacial surgical procedures. Surgical planning software don't recommend a plan, but only helps to predict the outcome of your plan to some extent. Not everything that you plan on the software is practically possible on the patient due to the biological limits of the tissues, and virtual surgical planning And 3D printing is just an adjunct and not a substitute to sound biological and surgical principles. And with virtual surgical planning and 3D printing in your hands, your imagination is the limit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It was such an innovative and informative lecture. It was a wonderful experience for us to know about this treatment arena. And we have few questions with us.
Please shoot them. Should I stop the sharing?
Yes. Sir, few of our participants, they wanted to know that are there any courses that are being conducted to learn and observe this art of 3D printing?
Right now, there are no courses, and even I didn't get a course to learn it. I have done it and learn it myself. But hopefully in future, I plan to organize few courses so that I can give this technique and to everybody.
So is it
Right
possible for the...
But right now there are no courses. I am not organizing any courses as of now. And but there are a lot of videos on YouTube. You can go to them and just look at them. They're basically, it's your interest that will help you to learn these things.
So does the 3D printing has any role in forensic as well?
Yeah, there is a role in forensics also. Like in cases of facial reconstruction, you can the CT scan of the deceased patient can be taken, and you can do it digitally or you can do it manually. So once you have a CT scan of that patient, you can print the skull and you can put the clay or that is used for the reconstruction of the face. That is the manual way. And now few people are working on AI based softwares which automatically generates the look, how would the disease would have looked like, and it is a technique available. But I don't have any experience in this, not done anything in this field yet.
And so what do you think, what is the scope, or we can say the future in India for the 3D printing? Where do you see 3D printing in next few years?
3D printing is going to be is actually the state of the art right now, and it is bound to grow more. The problem right now is that it is not available everywhere and it is costly. So and there is no training. So hopefully in coming years, with the advent of more cheaper ways of utilizing this technique, this should grow more. And it has varied applications in dentistry. There already you are getting crowns which are made through DMLS, direct metal laser sintering. So they are also based on 3D printing only. There are a lot of things that are being done through 3D printing. What I presented today is just an overview of what are its applications in oral and maxillofacial surgery. I have not covered everything. It is very vast. Still few techniques are there that I have not used myself. What I have used, I have presented that.
So does the All India Institute provide any research opportunity or research project for other students to also experience this treatment?
I can't comment on that. During my tenure there was no such project available. But hopefully in coming time, with more people interested into it, maybe they will come up with few projects.
Thank you so much, sir. I would like to invite Anmol to say a few words for this amazing lecture.
Thank you, sir, for such an informative lecture. It was really amazing. And there were a few more things which we have learned, which we were not knowing. And I'm also into research in oral surgery, so knowing new things inspire us more and more. Thank you for delivering such an informative lecture. And I hope this would encourage the practitioners to learn more and their interest towards this era, as it important in the modern practice, which we all are stepping into.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present my work and experience on this. I have a very small experience on this, but hopefully you'll get some more.
It's our pleasure to have you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr.
And
Anu,
for yeah, and for all our viewers, there's something very special that is being planned for you guys. So stay tuned to our Sinodent page tomorrow, and we'll be having a great surprise and a great announcement that has to be made regarding Sinophoria.